Fringe tidbit? There's some evidence that Paleolithic people used pine sap like a sort of ancient lip balm, practical, but also possibly cosmetic. Imagine freezing winds, cracked lips, and someone trying to flirt with a pine-scented pout. Early humans, tougher and more stylish than we give them credit for. Your friend nudges you and smirks. You smell like fermented pine nuts, they say. It's half insult, half greeting. You shrug. Better than mammoth pits, you reply. Someone across the fire snorts, which only encourages more banter. Another pair argues over whether the footprints seen earlier were wolf or large dog. One insists it's definitely wild. The other claims they've seen it licking someone's leftover roots. A third person chimes in with, maybe it's a spirit disguised as a dog. The debate swirls, half serious, half myth. You warm your hands again, letting the voices wash over you. This is the rhythm of camp life. Ceremony gives way to chatter, and chatter keeps the tribe glued together more than any spear ever could. Suddenly, a small piece of charred meat gets flicked across the circle. It lands with a dramatic flop on someone's fur-wrapped knee. The victim glares, and the flicker thrower plays innocent. Laughter breaks out. Tensions dissolve. Someone starts beating a rhythm on a log, and someone else hums along. You find yourself smiling. Historians still argue whether this sort of informal, fireside gathering played as big a role in survival as hunting and toolmaking. But sitting here, you're pretty sure it did. Because while mammoth meat fills the belly, stories fill the space between fear and frost. Outside, the wind moans across the snowdrifts. Inside, you lean back on your elbows, warmed not just by the fire, but by the thick, ridiculous, profoundly human web of social noise. Sure, someone might be plotting to steal your favorite fur blanket. And yes, you'll probably end up stepping on a sharp bone splinter in the dark. But for now, you're safe, foolish, and surrounded by people who'd mostly try to keep you alive. You settle in, letting the talk continue. About who tripped over what rock. About which reindeer looked at someone funny. About why the spirit talker keeps sneezing and whether that means snow is coming or she's allergic to elk. It's nonsense. Beautiful, human nonsense. And it's as necessary as fire. They're smaller than you remember, these tiny bundles of fur and dirt darting through the snow just outside the cave. You step outside and squint at the makeshift game underway. A group of children is tossing bones like dice, shrieking with delight when one lands standing upright. The rules? Unclear. The stakes? Possibly a handful of pine nuts and eternal bragging rights. You watch as one kid trips, rolls dramatically down a snowbank, and immediately turns it into a victory pose. Another uses 2 mammoth ribs as stilts and topples over like a prehistoric circus act. You can't help it. You laugh. Mainstream fact, archaeological sites have turned up carved bone animals, figurines, and small tools too delicate or impractical for adult use. Many scholars now believe Paleolithic children had toys, games, and surprisingly rich lives, not just mini chores and suffering roles. The wind picks up, flinging powdered snow into the air like confetti, and the kids only laugh harder. One of them holds up a chunk of ice like it's a sacred relic. You lean in. It's just a rock. But to them, it's a magic stone. This keeps the snow spirits away, they say solemnly, then trip on their own foot and faceplant. You don't know whether to applaud or offer a snowball to the face. One little girl tugs at your arm, leading you to a tree where they've hung a few bird skulls on twine. It's not as creepy as it sounds, okay, it's a little creepy, but she tells you it's a watching tree, meant to protect the camp. You nod seriously, because clearly she's the lead shaman now. Fringe tidbit, some theories suggest children in the Paleolithic weren't just play acting, they participated in rituals, possibly even as symbolic stand-ins for ancestral spirits or seasonal change. Others roll their eyes and say nah, kids are just weird. Both theories seem fair. Someone starts a new game involving throwing a stick and screaming at the top of their lungs. The only goal appears to be chaos. You join in, because why not? You scream, you throw. You don't hit anything meaningful, but it's weirdly cathartic. Historians still argue whether early human societies structured childhood or just let kids roam semi-feral until they could hold a spear. Evidence from tools and shelters suggests both. Children learned fast, but they also had space to be ridiculous. You follow the children as they make their way to the river's edge, where the ice creaks ominously. They stomp carefully, knowing which patches groan and which hold firm. One tests a snow-covered log for sledding potential. You step back wisely. She crashes down anyway, spinning in a blur of fur and shrieks. No injuries. Just pride. Then they all settle on the ground and begin drawing shapes in the snow with sticks and fingers. Some are animals, others spirals, one looks suspiciously like a lopsided fart cloud. You praise it all with exaggerated seriousness. They beam. One boy turns to you and points to a distant tree stump. That's where the invisible deer lives, he says. You nod again, stone-faced. Of course it is. He offers you a dried beetle as a token of respect. You accept it. Because it's the polite thing to do. Eventually, one by one, the kids trickle back to camp, dragging their bones and stones and theories about spirit deer. You trail behind, shaking snow from your cloak, your cheeks stinging from the cold and from smiling so much. You glance at the sky, it's beginning to darken again. Days are short here. But somehow, this chaos of snowballs, spirit sticks, and upside-down sledding feels as real as any mammoth hunt. These children are surviving, but they're also inventing, imagining, and being gloriously absurd. And in that, they might just be the truest humans of all. Night has fallen hard and fast, as if someone tipped the horizon like a bowl and let all the light spill out. Back at camp, the fire sputters in defiance of the deep cold, throwing long shadows across the packed earth and fur-covered forms huddled close together. You're full from something vaguely roasted and possibly root-based, and your limbs ache in that satisfying, I did something with my body today way. The elders are gathering now. Slowly, deliberately. You find yourself drawn to the circle like a moth to an ancient, smoke-scented flame. Someone gestures for silence, not with a barked command, but the subtle flick of a hand, like brushing away a mosquito made of noise. Mainstream fact, in the Paleolithic, oral storytelling wasn't just for entertainment. It was the primary method for preserving knowledge, survival tactics, spiritual beliefs, migration paths, all encoded in narrative. Stories were memory palaces with better character arcs. The first voice rises, a gravelly tone, worn smooth like riverstone. It speaks not in words you know, but rhythm and breath. You don't understand the syllables, but your bones do. There's a mammoth in the tale, a storm, a betrayal, and a glowing tree that may or may not be a metaphor for fire. Everyone listens. Even the kids, who moments ago were faceplanting into snowbanks, sit cross-legged and reverent. The tale shifts. A second elder picks it up mid-sentence, as if no time passed at all. It's a relay race of mythology. This one gestures wide with her arms, miming a bird or possibly a spirit taking flight. The flames leap as she does. Coincidence? Possibly. But your goosebumps think otherwise. Fringe tidbit, there are hypotheses that early humans used rhythmic chant and drumming to enter trance-like states during storytelling, blurring the line between narrator and participant. Think bedtime story meets live-action DMT trip. You catch flickers of meaning now, something about the great ice, the laughing tree, and the hunter who turned into a shadow. You're not sure if it's myth or family history. You suspect both. A hush falls. The fire snaps dramatically, as if on cue. The oldest elder, barely more than a whisper wrapped in furs, begins to speak. Everyone leans forward. This is the story, the one you only tell when the stars align or the fish migrate in spirals or someone sneezes 6 times in a row. You don't know the rule. But this moment? It matters. The tale begins with a child born under the aurora. He grows fast, walks with wolves, and tames a glacier by screaming at it. Logical? No. Powerful? Absolutely. Historians still argue whether specific Paleolithic myths can be traced through time into later belief systems, whether Ice Age stories became the seeds of gods, monsters, and folklore we still whisper today. Some say yes. Others caution that we're projecting our own myth hunger onto scant evidence. Either way, the idea that someone 30,000 years ago imagined something so vividly it echoes in us? That's magic. You catch yourself mouthing the rhythms of the words. They're unfamiliar, but feel right. Like a lullaby made of snow and fire. One of the children from earlier climbs into your lap. You don't protest. They're already asleep before they settle fully. You shift slightly so your foot doesn't go numb. Success. The story ends not with a shout, but with a silence so thick it hums. Then, in a moment that feels rehearsed and spontaneous at once, everyone exhales together. Like they'd all been holding breath for generations. You're not sure what the story meant. You're not sure you want to be sure. Some tales aren't meant to be decoded. They're meant to wrap around you like a second pelt, to whisper their warmth into your marrow and say, you're part of this, too. As the fire fades and bodies begin to drift into the cave or huddle closer, you stay seated, watching the stars blink through the treetops. You think about the glacier walker, the laughing tree, the shadow hunter. And you wonder who first told your story. You wait till the weight of warmth animal hide over your legs, someone's arm flopped casually across your chest, and the distant rumble of mammoths passing like living thunder. The embers still glow faintly, dotting the dark with orange eyes. A few others stir beside you, bundled in a messy sprawl of limbs and fur, like a particularly unkempt litter of very exhausted wolves. Outside the cave, the wind sings against the stone, a low, steady moan that tells you the ice age hasn't changed its mind overnight. The cold still rules, but for now, inside this little bubble of fire-warmed air and shared breath, you're safe. You're not just a guest anymore. You've been here long enough to be handed tasks without explanation and accepted into jokes you only half understand. That's Paleolithic friendship for you, rough-hewn, word-light, and made of shared mammoth fat. This morning, you're following a pair of hunters. Their names might mean something like Sharpstone and Foxface, but names here are less important than nods, glances, and what you can carry on your back. You're not hunting mammoths, thankfully, but something smaller, reindeer. Mainstream historical fact, reindeer weren't just dinner in the Upper Paleolithic. They were mobile general stores offering meat, fat, bones for tools, sinew for binding, and hides for clothing or shelter. Entire groups followed the herd seasonally. You could say reindeer were the original food trucks, except more skittish and covered in ice. You track the herd through packed snow, boot prints mingling with hoof prints. Your guides are nearly silent, except for the occasional grunt or soft whistle. They test the air with their noses like wolves. You try it. You sneeze. They snicker. You're getting better at this. Slowly. Up ahead, the herd grazes on lichen beneath the snow crust. You lie flat, blending into the white. The air is knife-cold in your nose, but you dare not breathe too loudly. You watch Sharpstone draw his otlotl, a throwing spear launcher, and whisper something that sounds like a prayer or a curse. Maybe both. The spear sails. There's a moment of frozen time, then a thud. The reindeer startle and scatter, hooves clattering like 1,000 heartbeats. One doesn't rise. Foxface is already running. You chase after, heart hammering, feeling oddly elated and guilty at the same time. The reindeer is dying, and while it's not a scene you want to dwell on too long, there's a quiet reverence in how the hunters approach. No whoops of victory. Just silence, hands steady, eyes focused. Fringe tidbit, some archaeologists believe early humans practiced proto-rituals around hunted animals, thanking their spirits, using every part out of deep respect, and sometimes even placing bones or skulls in specific, symbolic arrangements. You don't witness a formal ceremony, but there's something undeniably sacred in the way they work. The skin is peeled with practiced grace, the meat divided for carrying, the bones packed carefully. A tiny carved pendant is tucked under the animal's head before they leave. You didn't see who made it. No one mentions it. Historians still argue whether these practices were spiritual, superstitious, or simply early ecological instinct. Did they believe in animal spirits, or did generations of trial and error just hardwire gratitude into tradition? You don't have the answer. But you notice that everyone walks back slower than they arrived. Not from weight, but from weight. You carry part of the load, a rear leg that keeps swinging and bumping your hip like a clingy toddler. It smells strongly of effort and biology. You don't complain. Well, okay, you mutter once. But only once. Back at camp, you're welcomed with quiet nods and busy hands. Fires are rekindled. Stones are heated. Knives are honed. And you? You help string sinew into long, sticky threads. You're not great at it, but someone pats your back anyway. Paleolithic encouragement, baby. As night falls again, you sit near the fire, watching curls of steam rise from fresh meat, and realize something. Today, you helped feed a group of humans with nothing but bones, patience, and teamwork. That shouldn't feel revolutionary. But it does. And as the stars prick the velvet sky and someone starts humming a tune that sounds like snow falling on fur, you let yourself relax into it. The rhythm of a world where everything matters, and nothing is wasted. You wake with smoke in your throat and the sticky sweetness of cooked fat still clinging to your tongue. Last night's reindeer feast lingers in your bones, a heavy, satisfying ache. But the Paleolithic doesn't believe in lazy mornings. Today, the elders are whispering, well, their version of whispering, which involves guttural grunts, wide eyes, and a lot of side glancing. There's talk of moving. Your stomach tightens. You've just started to know where to step without tripping over a rock or a half-chewed bone, and now you're going nomadic? Again? Mainstream historical fact: Upper Paleolithic communities were highly mobile, often moving with the herds or seasons. Some groups traveled hundreds of kilometers a year, chasing reindeer migrations or fleeing encroaching glaciers. Packing up is not as simple as rolling a suitcase and calling an Uber Mammoth. It's a chaotic ballet of tying bundles with sinew, stuffing dried meat into skin pouches, and making sure the children don't wander off mid-wrap. You're handed a bone awl and told to tighten the bindings on a sled made of wood and antler. You manage not to impale yourself. Victory! Then comes the ritual. Before every move, the oldest woman, Snow Voice, you think her name means, scatters powdered ochre at the mouth of the cave. She chants, tapping the stone 3 times with a carved stick. You're not entirely sure what's being asked or offered, but it feels serious. No one interrupts. Even the toddlers hush. Fringe tidbit: some archaeologists believe ochre wasn't just for art, it had ritual use, symbolic of blood, life, and protection. Sites across Europe show ochre scattered near burials, hearths, and camp perimeters. The departure is slow. Not dramatic, not sad, just a steady forward shuffle. The sleds creak. The fire dies down behind you. And now you're part of this slow-motion migration across a frozen world. The cold bites harder once you're moving. The wind seems to laugh louder without the rock walls to muffle it. But the pace keeps you warm, and the rhythm of feet crunching on snow becomes oddly meditative. Then comes the crossing. A half-frozen river stands between you and the next hunting ground. You help test the ice, throwing stones and listening for cracks. Sharpstone walks out first, spear in hand like a balancing rod. You follow, legs trembling like overcooked mammoth marrow. About halfway across, the ice groans beneath you. Everyone freezes. Someone drops a bundle, and it skids toward a dark patch in the center. Historians still argue whether humans at this stage had developed ice-crossing techniques or if they simply relied on intuition and raw nerve. You lean more toward raw nerve at the moment. Eventually, you all make it, soaked boots and clenched teeth included. No one claps. There are no high fives. But there is a sense of earned silence, the kind that only follows near misses and slippery miracles. You set up camp in a shallow valley ringed by frost-dusted pines. The reindeer trails run nearby. Water flows under the ice. The firewood is dry. It's oddly perfect. That night, after bellies are full and children are buried under layers of fur like wiggling burritos, you watch as 2 men paint on a new cave wall. They don't talk while they work. Just dip fingers in red and black pigment, sketching a reindeer mid-leap, a mammoth with flared tusks, a stick manhunter trailing behind. It's not just a drawing. It's a memory pinned in time, a breadcrumb for someone like you thousands of years too late, but still listening. You lean against a cold boulder and whisper to yourself, remember this. Because here, where survival is a daily improv routine and even art needs to be portable, every detail matters. Every action echoes. Even the smallest one. The sun doesn't rise, it just sort of glows behind the clouds, like it's too shy or too tired to show up properly. You stretch beneath your fur wrap, your body sore from yesterday's migration and last night's cold, like your bones spent the night arguing with gravity. But no rest today. Because guess what? It's time to hunt again. You're starting to understand that in the Paleolithic, hunting isn't some dramatic, once-a-week event. It's like your morning coffee, only with more running and considerably higher odds of being gored. Mainstream historical fact: Upper Paleolithic people hunted in complex, coordinated groups, often using tactics like driving herds into natural enclosures or ambush points. The days of one-on-one duels with mammoths were largely artistic license or desperate measures. This time, the prey is something big. The elders have spotted a bison. A shaggy, tank-like creature with the personality of a lawnmower and the turning radius of a stubborn ox. Everyone's energy shifts from sleepy to electric. Spears are checked. Paint is reapplied, because if you're going to die, you might as well look cool. You're given a job: drive the beast. That means flailing your arms and yelling, basically. Super safe. Definitely not terrifying. Totally fine. You head out in a broad arc with the others, spreading through the trees like wisps of breath. There's Tenchio,